Here it is, folks, your AFC Conference Championship game. What will the Chiefs do about the Ja'Marr Chase problem? How are they going to get their matchups, and which ones are the keys? Then what do they have to accomplish in order to get this win? And finally, we will give you our predictions. This is going to be fun. Welcome to Red Friday, and welcome to Locked On Chiefs.
From the land of the free and the home of the Chiefs, this is the Locked On Chiefs podcast.
Welcome back, everybody. It's here. Thanks
these
for making
Red Fridays.
First listen.
Sorry, I was just gonna say these Red Fridays are always the fun ones.
They certainly are. This has been an interesting week too. After the 13-second game, the Grim Reaper game, whatever you want to call it. We've been riding high on that. So is the team. Now they have to get back down to business, and we've talked about this the last couple of days. First with Matt, and then I know you talked to the guys with Locked On Bengals. This comes down to, I think, you have to react to what you saw. You have to try to limit Ja'Marr Chase. But I'm concerned, and I think the big falling point here is you can't get too concerned with that. You can't overcompensate and put yourself in a worse position.
No, you absolutely cannot. And I do think that it's going to be very interesting to see how they come out and go against Ja'Marr Chase. I expect that they're going to double team him, although I also wonder if they're going to go early on and put Charvarius Ward on him as he's been traveling with the team's best wide receivers. I'm not saying he can take him one-on-one every single play, but it wouldn't shock me for him to be following Chase the entire game.
I will tell you this. I did a lot of digging about the sets that the Chiefs put out against him last time. And one thing that is going to be important is that when he is confronted with just zone coverage, Joe Burrow has been monstrous, has been efficient. He got the best of the Chiefs that way on the last go. So there has to be a combination there of some kind of either disguised zone or zone replacement type blitzing, one of those things, or a simple concept of man underneath zone concepts. I think that's the way that they have to go about it in order to not give, like you said, free releases, but also not give Joe Burrow what he's expecting. And that seems to be something that I think Steve Spagnuolo has built a strength on. I think he can certainly do it. I think he's got to mind his own tendencies to leave guys on islands and over blitz too much, leaving people open.
I would say he'd have to go back and look at the way they played against them in Week 17 and figure out that is not going to be the way you're going to beat the Cincinnati Bengals. I think you have to look back and say, we can't blitz Joe Burrow as much. I do still think he's going to blitz him. I just hope he doesn't do it near as much as he did that game. But it wasn't just the blitzing. It was different. It was different. It was a comedy of errors. It was poor tackling. There was a lot of different poor angles that were taken on specific plays. And Ja'Marr Chase is the guy that was the beneficiary of a lot of those.
Yeah, very much so. Now, that's not to say
the first touchdown, what did he have? 6 guys going at him, and all of them took horrible angles.
It has to be, I believe, a top-down type philosophy. It has to come from, I think, multiple deeper zones. I think playing single high, especially if you're going to man up underneath, is problematic. I'm not saying you have to be in a too high shell all the time, or you certainly don't have to play cover 2 all the time. I think you do have to mix it up. They did run a couple of snaps of 6 against the Bengals last time. I think it was a 66% completion rate at that point. So wasn't terribly effective, but you got to continue to mix it up so that it's not simple. It's not something that he can hit his back foot and let the ball come out. Because as we saw last week, if you make him hold the ball a little bit more, the front 4 pass rush has a chance to get home. They give up 9 sacks and 13 contacts on the quarterback last week. Now, if the Chiefs can do even half of that, I think they're going to be in good shape.
Yeah, if they can get to 5 sacks, I think they're going to be in great shape. And anything over that is going to be, just icing on the cake. I do think that is going to be a key matchup in this game that we're going to talk about a little bit later. But you still look back at the other weapons that the Bengals have. If you're going to double Ja'Marr Chase, maybe you don't have Ward on him all game. Maybe you have Ward follow T. Higgins around, or Tyler Boyd if you think he's the next biggest target, and have him shut down somebody and then double Chase and try to go about it that way. I do think that Fitton is important if he is able to play this game, which it looks like he should be able to play. But you also have to remember he was called for grabbing and holding, and those are things that he does because he plays really physically.
Mm-hmm. And they need that. especially if they are going to get to the point where they do something atypical, and rather than just getting up to the line of scrimmage and playing man, if they're actually going to press, if they're going to aggressively make contact and try to reroute Chase, I think that's part of the equation. And I think, honestly, in terms of functional strength in doing that, Fenton is the guy that you need the most if they're going to line Chase up on the outside. And after we saw those fade routes, the throw it up and hope that Chase gets it passes from Joe Burrow last time, I think that they are going to line him up on the outside because they like what they have out there.
They should like what they have out there. It worked really well for them last time. You would think that that's kind of the way that they're going to go about it this time. But at the same time, you also have to think that they're going to expect changes by the Chiefs this year or this game. And I do think Kansas City's defense is going to look a little bit different than it did the last game. And I do think that the Chiefs are going to be a lot more locked in than they looked at like they were in that game, especially in the second quarter, because it didn't look like they were locked in as a defense in the second quarter. And I think part of that was they got off to a hot start. They stopped the Bengals. They got up 14-0, and then they kind of maybe lost a little bit of focus.
Yep.
And then it became 14-14 at half.
And that's the thing, is this team is as explosive as they come as well. Just because you won that barn burner last week doesn't mean that this game isn't going to be explosive. They need to have all the gas in the tank, and we have a way to help you guys get less money spent on for your gas in the tank. All you have to do, Chiefs fans, is go over and pick up the Get Upside app at the Apple Store or the Google Play Store or wherever you get your apps. It helps everything, and it makes it super simple. When you sign up with the Get Upside app and use our code Touchdown, you get 25 cents per gallon back on everything that you track with that app. You don't have to pay full price at the pump anymore. You get that 25 cents back, and it accumulates on your account. You pay yourself back either through a bank account or PayPal or whatever you want. And if you're someone like me that takes a lot of fuel to move your vehicle, you end up making quite a bit back as you go through the process. All you got to do is download that Get Upside app from any store, use the code Touchdown, and you get 25 cents back on your first tank and every tank after that. That's code Touchdown with the Get Upside app. And then when you've done that, you're going to have a few dollars in the bank that you might want to put on the line somewhere. Maybe on this game, maybe on a Niners game, maybe on the Super Bowl that's coming up. And if you do, there's plenty of matchups to go around. Go to BetOnline. It remains the number one spot for all your best wagering action of 2022 on all the sports, not just football, but obviously that's what we're going to talk about the most. All the other ones will come into play throughout 2022 as well. So get to BetOnline. It's the fastest and easiest way to wager on all your favorite sports. BetOnline, that's where the game starts. Where this game starts is the key matchups. And I'm going to start with the one that I am most intrigued by because I hear a lot of talk, a lot of flapping lips all over the country about how good Bengals defense was last time. Well, your leading pressure getter was Trey Hendrickson. Very good player. 4 pressures on the day. The only problem is he didn't get to play against the left tackle. And now all of a sudden Orlando Brown is back. So this key has to be number one for me because you're predicating slowing down the Chiefs offense on being able to get that pressure. Yet you were playing against a guard at the tackle spot last time. And all credit to Joe Thuney. He did a wonderful job. But that is not necessarily an even matchup. So I feel like if this goes the way it should, you have a matchup today with Orlando Brown versus Trey Hendrickson that is more in the Chiefs' favor than it was the last time these teams met.
I agree with that completely. I would also say that they are going to be down, it looks like, Camp Sample, who is not practiced this week. Larry Ogunjobi is actually on IR. He played the last time that they played the Chiefs. Mm-hmm. So their defensive line is going to be hurting. So I do think that that's something to take into account as well. And then you start looking at, how is this going to affect, or how are they going to affect the Bengals offense? And to me, one of the key matchups of this game is looking at the right side of the Bengals line versus Chris Jones and Melvin Ingram. Those matchups there are going to be huge for this game because that is where they're the weakest, and they have, their right tackle is on IR. He's not going to be playing. It's going to be a lot of fun for Chris Jones and Melvin Ingram, in my opinion. And I do think they put Frank Clark over there at times as well.
Yeah, and I can understand why you would think that because the right-hand side struggled last time, and now they're down a player. So it's even worse at that point. I think left guard is a spot that they can take advantage of too. So I expect to see moving around for Chris Jones in particular, how affects the rest of the entire front. Melvin Ingram, I thought, really has been coming on the last couple of weeks. For him in particular, it's an opportunity that he hasn't had as of late, just because of the teams that he's been playing on, and quite frankly, the injuries he's been dealing with. So when we take a look back, he was one of the better players on the field the last time these two met. He had, 4 pressures on the day, same as Hendrickson. So I think that you can see that matchup is going to be very important, just in reverse what we just talked about with Orlando Brown and Hendrickson.
I completely agree. And then you start looking at, you look at some other matchups that are going to be key in this game. And I think, it's going to be the linebackers versus the running game, or even the pass catchers out of the backfield. And I more specifically Joe Mixon, but Samaje Perine, however you pronounce it, had a huge tip pass against the Tennessee Titans that almost cost them the game at the end. So that's going to be something to watch. If this linebacking crew can slow down the running game and make this a one-sided or a passing attack that Cincinnati has to use, don't get me wrong, they have a fantastic passing attack, but I think it's going to favor Kansas City because then they know what they have to stop and they don't have to worry about the run as much.
I will tell you this, and the opposite is true as well. When you take a look at their last meeting, Tyreek Hill did not have a whole lot of production. It was an issue on the day, and as you stack it all up for what it means, Chidobe Awuzie was a guy that got the better of that matchup. He allowed only 31 yards on the day across the board. A lot of that due to not having Hill up to form. Certainly not like you saw Hill last week against the Buffalo Bills. But here's the key. Awuzie allowed 7 receptions on 8 targets. So getting the ball to the player isn't really the issue. And as long as we feel that Tyreek Hill is now back to normal and explosive like he was last week against the Bills, that tells me that their best performing defender in the last matchup has a much bigger job this time. And I feel like that, again, leans towards the Kansas City Chiefs.
It absolutely does lean towards Kansas City. I think that Hill being 100% this game is going to be huge, but then you also start looking at what it's going to mean for guys like Travis Kelce, who I think Hill is going to help open up the field, Byron Pringle, any of the wide receivers that are out there, and even McCole Hardman at times, because you look at what they have done with Hardman. They've used Hill consistently to take the top off the defense and use Hardman underneath on drag routes. That was how they got in position to have the winning touchdown against the Buffalo Bills. And that's a fantastic thing for Hardman to do, because if you can get him where he's kind of in motion and already started at the line of scrimmage, good luck having a corner stay with him the entire way.
Yeah, and I think when you look back at that last meeting, Travis wasn't exactly 100% healthy. What was he? 25 yards on 5 targets. I'm sorry, 5 receptions, 7 targets. That was the game where Blake Bell actually produced 35 yards, more than Travis Kelce. Hardman was involved in that, right? And I think what we've seen is, I know this, everyone's going to say this is just a couple of weeks ago, right? True. Since then, you've seen Hardman make some small strides, especially in that bit player role behind Hill and Kelce. I think that is significant. Byron Pringle has made some big plays in that backup role.
Yeah, and I think I'm glad you brought up the fact that everybody's saying that this was just a couple of weeks ago and it was significant. I'm not saying it's not significant, but I would also say that there are people out there that saying the Chiefs played a very good game and didn't have mistakes. There's nothing that could be further from the truth. All the penalties, regardless of whether or not you think they were actually penalties, killed this team. And offensively, they were only able to score 3 points. That means that game in the second half for the Chiefs offensively was full of mistakes. The penalties were full of mistakes, whether or not they should have been called or not. Kansas City beat themselves a lot in that game. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying that the Bengals didn't play well and that they shouldn't have won, but Kansas City beat themselves a lot in that game, second quarter and fourth quarter specifically.
I think we need to get to the specific things that they have to do in order to accomplish this win, given all the things that we've already talked about. I have a couple of ideas, but I think we should probably touch base on something else first.
Our buddies over at Built Bar, if you have not checked these out, I do not know why you have not checked these out yet. These are fantastic. It is the new year, so that does mean a lot of people have New Year's resolutions. If yours is about getting fit or eating healthier, make sure you include Built Bar in your plan. Built Bar is the protein bar that tastes like a candy bar, maybe even better than a candy bar. Built Bar makes it easier to stick to your resolution because it tastes so good you want to eat it. Unlike other protein bars, which can be chalky or waxy or taste like a chemical spill. Built bars are covered in 100% chocolate. Most bars contain 130 calories, only 4 grams of sugar or 4 net carbs, and 17 grams of protein. Compare that to a candy bar, which usually has around 240 calories, 30 grams of sugar, and dozens of net carbs. And there's so many flavors to choose from: coconut, almond, peanut butter brownie, raspberry, cookies and cream, salted caramel, mint brownie, and many, many more. Built is always coming out with new limited time flavors, so check out Built.com often to see what's new. Go to Built.com and use promo code LOCKED15 and get 15% off your order. Use promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at Built.com. All right. And I want to tell you, you need to go make sure that you check out Peacock and Williamson. They're going to be at the Super Bowl for Super Bowl week, so be sure you check their show out. Let's go ahead and get into goals to go.
Yeah, I mean, let's be real. The top of the show is the top of the show. You got to slow down Chase. If he doesn't score 3 touchdowns, if he doesn't have 266 yards, that previous meeting doesn't end the way that it does. Now, that's not to say that you, like we talked about earlier, you can't stop him. I think he's proven that. And we can have debates about where he is in the hierarchy of the wide receivers within this league. But it's very clear to me that you need to keep him under 130 yards and keep him to 2 scores or less. If that happens, then I feel you have a good chance at limiting the other role players on that roster to the point that you should be able to keep them under 30 points. And if you do that, I expect the Chiefs to score that much. That goes a long way to get the win.
Yeah, I do think that the Chiefs are going to score over 30 in this game, but we'll get to that in just a little later. 2 touchdowns would be really good to hold Jamar Chase to. Although I do think that Kansas City has an ability to line up a little bit better this time around. And I think that the addition of Tyrann Mathieu coming back from injury, which it sounds like he should be coming back from injury, should really help that. So I do think that will help them this time around. When I look at goals to go, for me, it's you get in situations that is going to put you at the best possible situation to succeed. That means getting first and second down, you have to get 4 or 5 yards just about every single time. I mean, that's just what you have to do. You need to stay ahead of the chains, get to 3rd and 2, 3rd and 3, those types of downs. But really what it means to me is go 75% on 3rd downs. If you can do that, you're going to win this game because the Bengals defense is not going to be able to stop you if you're getting 75% of your 3rd downs.
I completely agree with you. And getting those 3rd downs is dependent on timing. I could put an arbitrary number on like 2.7 seconds to give Mahomes time. I will say this. The key is the offensive line play. Goals to go is that they allow Patrick to have enough time to execute whatever drops that he's doing. I can't put an actual timeline because I don't know what that is. But they've been playing better as the weeks have gone on since the last Bengals game. And quite frankly, without Ogunjobi, I think that is an underrated piece that is key because in the run game, a way that you can keep the ball away from that potent offense on the other side. Not that that's the goal, but I feel like the Chiefs have the ability to run inside better now. We've seen them improve. We've seen Trey Smith and Creed Humphrey in particular be able to move players out of that middle. Without Ogunjobi, I think that becomes easier. And I think they have to utilize that. Not necessarily all power runs, although they do have to do that. We have to see counter. And we have to see some draws, which I think, especially with Jerick McKinnon, may be something that pays off quite well for this team.
I'm really looking forward to seeing another week of a healthy Clyde Edwards-Helaire with Jerick McKinnon because I think both of those guys give them something different. They're kind of built similarly, but they have different capabilities. So I think that's going to be a lot of fun to watch. I'd like to see them get Clyde more, involved in the passing game, but it doesn't seem like they're going to do that. And I understand why they're doing it with McKinnon because he absolutely is fantastic at it. So that's something to watch. I do think, though, one of the biggest keys, and I think I say this every single week, but it just seems to me like it's one of those things. If Kansas City wins the turnover battle, especially +2, they're going to win this game. If they hold on to the ball and they don't make mistakes, which if you watch the offense in the past couple of games, they haven't turned the ball over. They have been holding on to the ball. They've been taking care of it. Patrick Mahomes has looked absolutely dialed in or locked in, however you want to say it. When the game starts, he hasn't been putting it in harm's way, and receivers are locked in when it comes to catching the ball, which has caused Mahomes a lot of interceptions this year. I have a hard time believing Joe Burrow isn't going to turn over at least once in this game.
If that happens, I think that just plays right into their hands. I'm not so certain of that because I feel like he's hitting his stride as well. Clearly, he's comfortable playing in big stadiums. He certainly seems to think that this is nothing different. I
Good
suspect
luck
that
with that.
choice is going to play a factor here, and that could lead to one. So I'm with you there. The turnover game is going to be, obviously, it is one of the critical pieces to determining any game. At the end of the day, I don't know that that's going to be what happens here. I really look for this to be a battle, offense on defense on both sides of the ball. So that said, I will stay locked on. Do you want me to go first?
Go right ahead.
Okay, because I'm not convinced that this is going to be that big, last second heroics kind of ball game. I do think it will probably come down to the last possession. But I don't think it's going to be, you can kick a 60-yarder and win. I think the margin will be a little bit wider by then. And I think most likely it is somebody trying to come back to break into the 30s. I see this game being tight very early, and then I think that late in the second quarter, things will open up for the Kansas City Chiefs. I think at that point, they can wear some things out and take advantage offensively. Might be a little rough early, but that's going to be okay because at the end of the day, the end of this ball game, I see the Chiefs winning this game 31-27.
31-27. I would love to say that I don't think both teams are going to score in the 30s. I just don't know that I can do that right now with the way that the Bengals have been playing on offense and the Chiefs are playing on offense. I have a really hard time believing that the Chiefs offense is going to get slowed down in this game just because they were so sharp against the Buffalo Bills. They were sharp once they got going against the Steelers, and I think that's going to carry over into this game. And for people that are saying that they're overlooking this game to look at the Super Bowl, go back and watch Week 17. There's no way this team is overlooking the Bengals team. If they would have won, that would be a possibility. To me, I think Kansas City scores maybe close to 40 points. I'm going to go 38, and I think the Bengals are going to be really close to getting to 30 points, or if not 30 points. I'll give them 30 at this point. It's going to be a one-score game, but I think Kansas City is going to take a lead early on, and I'm talking more of the second quarter, maybe even the early third quarter, and the Bengals are going to be having to fight back, and you're going to see a lot of prevent defense on the Chiefs side. And I will also say this. If Kansas City can get pressure at any time consistently, all bets are out the window, and this game could end up being a two-score game.
You never know. We'd like to know what you think, though. So leave us your thoughts, your score predictions on the comments on YouTube, in the iTunes reviews. We can see them all in all those places. Make sure you like, sub, and hit the bell if you are on YouTube. And check out Locked On Bets because there's a lot of action getting laid on this game, the other game, and, of course, the Super Bowl. You can get all the information you need there. I'm looking forward to this. We will have post-game for you, as we always do. We look forward to that. Hopefully, it will be a little bit less exhausting because of the stress of the end of a ball game, but we will be here for you. We appreciate you spending your time and getting ready. We appreciate you making us your first listen. Thanks for doing that today, and we will talk to you post game.